There he is, folks. We must be paying him the big bucks. He's back. Bi-weekly, the great Mike Burton, Super Bowl champ, Kansas City Chief, and current Denver Bronco. Michael, what's going on?
Not much. I appreciate you having me back on. I wasn't sure after last week, the whole Taylor Ham pork roll debate, but I appreciate you having me back for round two.
It's great to bring up Jersey early, even though we're now both Maryland residents. That's fantastic. Mike, it is draft week. Now, for me, as the undrafted free agent, not all of us can be as fortunate as the great Mike Burton to be drafted. You know, that's what happens when you're just a yuppie from North Jersey. Those special things happen to you now. My first question was, who is contacting you the week of the draft from teams? Did anybody say, hey, listen, we could take you higher than you went in the 5th round? Or the people that call you said, I may take you undrafted? Like, how did that work? Because you settled in the 5th round there.
Yeah, actually, the week leading up to the draft, I didn't have much conversations with the team whatsoever. That was actually going through my agent. They were contacting him. He was talking to them, and he was kind of keeping me in the loop, you know, whatever conversations they might have had. But that week leading up, I was kind of just, you know, focused on working out. I knew that I was hopeful that, you know, rookie mini camp would be down the line a little bit, whether you're drafted, undrafted, signed as a tryout player, whatever the case may be. So I was still working out and doing those things, preparing for that moment, because that's what I could control at that time. So a lot of those conversations were going back and forth between my agent and the teams.
Got it. So in an undrafted perspective, and Mike and I's episodes are probably more conversations than interviews. On my end, my phone was heating up a little bit. And actually, Casario with New England a couple weeks before the draft met with me in person, as well as a few other players. And I was shocked because it's over my agent. My agent was like freaking out, like, don't tweet anything. Don't tell anybody. Like, don't, like, they were just so nervous. I guess that's how New England operates. They're very no social media. No. So I get that. But I remember talking to my agent being like, holy cow, dude, like you have an in-person, like could be a draftable deal. And then I probably had 20 teams to 25 teams call for my personal phone on draft day. So again, I was supposed to be like a rookie minicamp guy. And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, that's a lot of people calling for your number on draft day. Like, I know that's standard practice, but all the undrafted tight ends that year, I was probably one of the better guys. I would assume, looking back, as an undrafted guy again in that bracket. So yeah, my phone heated up that week with that. My agent's like, you may get drafted here. Like, again, this is all speculation, but we'll see what happens. So no, that's why I was curious leading up to the draft. So day of the draft comes, your agents say what to you? Malka Sports, you're the same agent now, Pat Capra and the gang over there. Are they saying, hey, Mike, this is where you're going to fall. Be ready for this moment and be ready for day one? What are they saying?
Yeah, no, absolutely not day one. But I didn't really ask too many questions about kind of where I was falling, only because me personally, I didn't want to put any expectations on the weekend. You know, if I didn't go here or I didn't go there, didn't, you know, want to be disappointed and all those different types of things. Because at the end of the day, going into the weekend, I wanted an opportunity. Right. I always tell young players now to this day, it doesn't matter how you get there. You just got to get there and then you got to stay there. It's much harder to stay there once you're there than to get there. Right. Yep. So for me, it was just getting that opportunity, whether it had been, you know, drafted late round, which that's, you know, would have been the best case scenario, right? Drafted late round and then potentially undrafted and priority free agent and then minicamp trial. So whatever that looked like, I was just hoping for an opportunity, but was thankful and blessed enough, you know, to get picked and, you know, avoid the free agency stuff at the end of the draft. Because I know that, like you said, I'm sure you can attest to that heats up. You got teams calling, you know, minutes the draft ends and all those types of things. So, you know, kind of knew middle of the day there on Saturday where I was headed and that kind of stuff. So it was definitely an awesome experience for sure.
Yeah. So for me, and we'll get into different intricacies at the draft day in a second, but I'll take it back to you as, again, we're doing more of a conversation here. How many teams talked to you before, or your agent? Like, did your agent have a feel of what these teams were going to be that were touching base? Again, your agent's Malka knew that you were going to get drafted, 5th round picks. You pretty much know you're going to get drafted. They say to you, you're going to go from 4th to the 5th round, somewhere in there, 6th round. Did you talk to certain teams before the draft that talked to you a ton? You're like, I think I can end up there. Or, you know, you knew like Detroit all along was a good fit for you.
Yeah, I think we knew all along they were a possibility for sure. I went to a Medal of Honor game, which was a college all-star game. So again, I talked to all the teams there. That was more of a roundtable situation. And then I got invited to the combine, so I was there. So again, spoke to the teams again, but that was more of a roundtable situation as well. I had the pre-draft visit with New England and Cleveland, so I thought maybe they could have been a fit. And then I had a workout with Tampa Bay, so maybe that could have been a fit. And then worked out with the local days, Jets and Giants. So thought, hey, that could also be fit too. So there were a handful of teams that my agent was talking to. But again, throughout that process, I was just more kind of worried about what I can control at that time and showing up in shape and ready to roll wherever I may have gotten picked or signed if it happened to be free agency, because at that point in time, your resume is, in my opinion, is complete, right? Your film is your resume. That's really what stands out. That's what's going to get you picked, and that's what's going to get you signed, right? Like the combine and the pro days and all those different types of things are great. And they're an important part of the process for sure. And they can get guys, taken higher or lower, whatever the case may be. But it's that film. That's your resume. That's what I believe in this business still to this day. That's your resume, and that's how you stay in this league and things like that. So we had talks, and my agent had talks. But again, at the end of the day, I was just trying to more so focus on what I could handle, what I could do, and kind of let him talk to the teams.
No doubt, man. That's great stuff. Now, you brought up the combine. A bunch of questions popped into my head with that, and this isn't really a combine show. But what was the hardest part about the combine for you? I've heard many things over the years, challenging with sleep and eating and dieting and weight, and you're just grinding all day with questions and answers, and they're picking and prodding at you. You got to run, and then you got to perform, and then the anxiety. What was the hardest part for you?
Yeah, I think like you just listed it all. Maybe not one thing, but the combination of all those things, the lack of sleep, the lack of nutrition, hydration and all those different types of things. And, you want to put yourself out there. You have to be on all the time because you never know who's looking. So you're focused, you're locked in, who's watching, who you're speaking to, how are you presenting yourself in interviews? Then you got to take mental tests, physical tests, and do all these different things. So, it's a 3-4 day interview. It's not one of those, traditional interviews where you walk in, you might speak for a couple hours or it's a day or whatever. It's 4 days. You are, from the moment you step off that plane, medicals, to the second you run through that finish line at the 40, everything in between is an interview. So you got to be locked and loaded. You got to be focused, and you got to be, the best you can be, because that is a huge interview. And that's what that was, and great experience for sure. And I was happy I was able to get invited to that.
So let's back up to talk about the local pro day at Rutgers. Anything stand out for you from that day?
Yeah, the local pro day. Again, I want to say close to all 32 teams were present. It was a great day. A lot of my fellow teammates were there. They all had a great day. I just remember overall, Gary Noe was their quarterback. He was throwing to me. He ended up, with a couple teams. I think he went to the Giants, then maybe the Packers. So it was great. It really was. It was just nice to have another opportunity to impress in front of scouts, right? So you're just looking for that.
Did you go again with everything from the combine? Did you do all the combine stuff?
I did everything, but I didn't bench. Oh no, I'm sorry. I did bench. I didn't run the 40, and now I did everything else. I did positionals. I benched again. I vertical again. Broad jumped again. L cone again. 5-10-5 again. I think it was everything but the 40 I held on that time at the combine. That was
like your time. What was it there, big boy?
It was, we ran twice, and I want to say I was a 4.8, maybe the first one, and then a 4.73 or 4.74, low 4.7. That's the one I kind of held on, which was laser.
Hold on that.
Well, a few teams had me in the 4.6s hand. I know laser is much more accurate, but when we kind of heard that, position I'm playing, we thought, we could kind of.
What are you going to tell your kids?
Well,
what are you going to tell your kids?
To be honest, we were actually kind of getting, there's a little bit of time. I want to say the combine was the end of February. Pro day might have been mid-March or so, mid to late March. So we had some time in there to maybe gather some information like, hey, we really think Mike should run again. Hey, we want to see something different. And we didn't feel we got that from the 40s, so we felt comfortable sitting on that number,
What are you going to tell your kids that you ran for a 40?
Well, they can look it up. So I think I got to be truthful, but I like that hand 4-5, maybe hand 4-4. Who knows,
Yeah. It's always debating for me. It's like, do I fabricate a number a little bit here?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
dad wasn't that slow. Like, don't listen to Uncle Dan Brown and Uncle Michael Burton. Like, they're gonna tell
Yeah.
you like he's slow as dust.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go draft day. For me, it's Saturday of the draft. The last couple rounds go through. A couple teams there had a bunch of draft picks. Like almost every undrafted guy has this story, right? It's kind of funny. Like after a couple of years, you look around, they're like, "Oh, the team called me and they said they could take me here in the 7th because they have 2 picks, but like they're really not going to take one of us, maybe." But I think Denver. I talked to, I think it's Brock, coach. He's a scout there. I forget his name off the top of my head, of course, but he's like, he talked to me a lot on my pro day, just like following me around, asking me random questions. Like
Yeah.
he asked, if I had to pick one player to play with in pros, who would it be? I said PJ Walker, which ended up happening. And then like he's just asking me different questions, like want to hear me respond. Okay. And then followed up my agents like the pro day, and they're all shocked, like, wow, you can actually run routes and catch. Like you didn't do that at Temple, really. I mean, it just wasn't a part of the offense. So that's kind of how my stock went up a little bit. And then the local pro days did really well at the Giants, did not do well at the Jets at all, and did okay with the Eagles. It was all based off like what I did. Like the Jet stuff was like cone drills for tight end stuff. They want to see us like do like 3 yards, 3 yards, 3 yards, 3-yard cone drill. Like that's not my thing. Like I'm not going to do well at that. But the Giants was just like corner routes and basics and like all my thing and hitting the bag hard. So that's why I did well. And the Giants offered me the most money coming out undrafted. So Saturday of draft day, undrafted day, had the family over the house. The draft finished, and my agents called and was like, "Hey, there's a couple teams involved. We'll let you know." But it was Oakland, Rams, Raiders, Rams, and Giants were the 3 real serious ones. No Denver, which we thought was going to be involved. I was hoping Philly, of course, like every kid from Philly, but I look back, was probably a good thing. I thought the Giants being that close to home was still troublesome. Hour after practice, you have like 2 hours, hour and a half between the end of practice and like the first meeting in camp. At least at that time, I remember we had it, or maybe an hour. And I would spend like 40 minutes with my family, and then I have 20 minutes to like running, get undressed, shower, and like you're like, man, like this is tough. This was hard, and it was like you felt bad because like all these people are here to see you. So I struggle with that. I'm all over the place per usual, but just go and do different things. So Saturday draft day, family's at the house in Cape May. Got to go upstairs, call my girlfriend at the time, up my wife, my parents, and boom, we're off. My agents are like, we're going to the Giants. We're signing with the Giants, $4,500, baby. So I just started crying. I was so excited. My parents, family was there. We had big hugs and thank you, and we partied and played music. And you would have thought I was the first pick overall with a $20 million signing bonus, but it was $4,500. My uncle, I'll never forget it, drove down the street, John, boom, bought every Giants that were in Cape May. So there's like Giants, Jets, and Eagles stuff there. Went to the local like sporting goods store and bought everything Giants, every shirt, Odell jerseys, everything, so we could walk into the local pub to see you that night in Giants gear. And was so nice of him to do that. And went to the CVU and sang American Pie and Don't Stop Believing and all that till like 2 a.m. And then that was it. It was right to work, as you said, because it's coming. And it's a crazy feeling. Like when I got drafted, I felt that like the work was done. I don't mean that like I'm not going to work hard anymore, but I'm like, man, it was such a weight, like a piano on your shoulders. Like, am I ever going to play in this league? And you're like, holy cow, I'm going to play in this league. Holy shit. Like it's going to happen. I'm going to put a helmet on or a logo. I'm going to sign a piece of paper with a logo on it at least. So I digress. That was kind of my draft day, and we had an absolute blast. What was the day like for you, and what'd you do to hang with family and distract yourself from the moment?
Yeah, exactly. Well, first, that's an awesome story, by the way. It just goes to show everybody's got their own like unique story, whether it's the first overall pick or someone who signs after the draft. You're just as happy. You know what I'm saying? It's because, again, it goes back to just having that opportunity, because that's all us competitors ever want, is the opportunity to perform and be
no doubt, man. No doubt.
So,
and there's even more to it too. And I'll finish it before you go into yours, because for me, like my mom was crazy about like vision boards and visualization. My dad was big on that, like success. So my mom's like, okay, Giants win the Super Bowl parade, even though we're like a Philly Eagles family, even though we weren't Eagles fans technically as my family, because my mom's friend coached around the league and we bounced around following his teams. we went and saw the Giants parade when I was a kid because my mom's like, you want to play in the NFL? You need to see what success looks like. Like, you need to visualize this. I want to wear number 80 because I've Jeremy Shockey my whole life. I want to wear 80, but I always played offensive line. I got to high school and they wouldn't let me wear it.
Yeah.
So I was like a Giants fan in that regard because my mom's friend was a defensive coordinator, Tim Lewis. So like to get picked by the Giants, like Big Blue, like where I grew up going. I know you're a North Jersey guy, like you understand this, Central Jersey.
Oh, yeah.
And then like Giants are a big deal. And then, you know, I go to my locker and 80s hanging in my locker and Jeremy Shockey posters on my wall as a kid, you know? So like, holy shit. So I jumped in on you as you were going, but talk about the day you got drafted to be an NFL football player.
Yeah. My story's not as exciting as yours, but I just similar type of day. Had my family was up, parents, uncle, girlfriend at the time, and my agent were up, and we're kind of just hanging out, watching the draft. I did watch it. I know some guys say they don't like to watch it. They want to be occupied doing other stuff. I watch it because I love the draft. I still watch every pick to this day just because it's interesting to me. We've spoken before, that after this, my career's over, whether I want to get into scouting or coaching, I want to be around the game, and I love everything about the draft, evaluating players and all those types of things. So I enjoy watching the draft. So I was watching every single pick, and I didn't have an inclination like when we got to that third day, middle of the day, fifth round, fourth round ended, fifth round came. Like I wasn't expecting anything. Like I said, I didn't put any expectations on it, and then all of a sudden, get a phone call. It's from the Detroit Lions. Speak to the general manager, Mark Mayo at the time, Jim Caldwell, head coach at the time, positional coach at the time, Curtis Mockins. Speak to them, and it was just all very exciting, very happy, just to get started. And at that point, my mindset was, it's time to work now. Now this is the real challenge, begins. And I was very, very excited for the opportunity. But as you can attest to, that next day, it's like, all right, you better get to work. You get your date that you got to be out there, and what's expected of you. So you better, show up ready to go because, it just gets your foot in the door, right? You have to do everything you can to stay there and be consistent year after year. And I think that's very valuable.
The train is rolling. You got to jump on it. Like
train's rolling, and it stops.
You wake up that morning and it's like, whoop, the anxiety's back, or whatever you want to call it, and it's good. It's healthy. And it's funny. Like everybody calls you like equipment, operations. Yeah. It's all like the first day is like, hey, you're John, you're whatever, you're flying. It's awesome. And then the next day it's like hotel, operations, travel. You're like, oh, okay. Yep. Got it. Okay. And then it rolls and your agent's like, okay, here's your contract, sign your contract. You're like, all right, piano's back on the back here. It's time to start pulling the weight.
Exactly.
All right. So, now my last question for you as we wrap here. And again, this is, I don't know if we're going to call this Minute with Mike, bonus time with Burton. I mean, I don't know what our little segments here. That's what I just thought about. But I think it's interesting. And you want to be a scout. And I've had this conversation with some people before. Actually, Yoni and I have talked about this. Is why is the third of the NFL undrafted, right? Why are these late round picks playing 9 years, 10 years like you are? And it's interesting. And I said the reason why is because I don't think scouts, it's hard. They have to pound the table for certain players that go later. And then there's debate whether, they have different regions and all. It's the scouting department's interesting. But I think scouts in general, it's based off whether the university is going to let you in the door to really watch the film and watch practice and get around the players. I think scouts have to get around players. From the teams I remember that were around at Temple, Coach Rule let everybody in the building. Not always the case with some. They don't let all the scouts in. I'm sorry if I broke up there. And I'm long and trying to really think through this and again, conversation format here. I want to hear your opinion. I don't think scouts, the scouting departments that were there from teams that I knew at the time were really good, they acted and did things differently than other places. That's how their front office, they watched our individual drills like crazy. They watched how we interacted with trainers. They watched how we interacted with coaches. They watched us in the weight room. They watched everything you did, every smile, every frown, every strain. They want to see how you interact because I think the smartest players are the best players. Not the smartest people. I'm talking about smart players. And I just think that when you hit on these undrafted guys and you hit on these late round picks, it's on a really good scouting department. Now, of course, every team hits on all these, but I think scouts need to, or the ones that do, hit on these picks because they get to know the human a little bit. Somehow, some way, through questions, through strength staff, through whatever, they know how these guys tick. And certain guys tick differently than others. Guys that are super gifted, they may not have to tick as much with the work ethic and that. So again, it's a really long-winded question for you, but because Detroit, you're intangible. It's not like you have like a million rushing yards and you're smoking linebackers. I mean, maybe you were. I know you're a great player in college, but like it's not like you're Mike Allstott. So it's like, what do you think those intangibles are that those guys find? And you think scouts do that stuff? And that was a tough question.
Yeah.
I think knows how to.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's certainly a tough question. I think, my answer would be the due diligence process, right? It's like anything else. What you put in is what you're going to get out. So the effort and the time spent on learning about these kids, talking to the coach, talking to the strength coach, talking to the athletic trainer, talking to the academic advisor. How is he in school? How has he progressed from freshman year to senior year? How can that relate, to the football field, and obviously watching the tape and all that types of things. But it's finding in their background information, even going back to high school and all those different types of things, I think are very important. And now you have these opportunities, whether it be the combine, all-star games, pro days. So there's 3-4 events where you can get in front of these kids. Now you can have these, I think you can have these maybe 1-2 hour Zoom calls. You can bring them in on top 30 visits. So there's a huge ability to speak to these kids and get to know them. And you can find out if they're faking or not, because at some point you just can't. You either love football or you don't. And the more you talk to them, the more you meet with them and reach out to their connections and people that they were involved with for the past 4 years, specifically at colleges, like those coaches and advisors and stuff that we met. Digging up that due diligence is so huge. It's so part of such a big part of the process.
No doubt.
Yeah,
I think the COVID year was interesting because
it's a due diligence, man. It's putting the effort to find every single detail you can about the kid.
It really matters.
Yeah,
they all matter. And I think like the COVID year, you could see with some of the guys that I was around and guys I know from other teams who were around, they were like, I thought they were drafted too low or they're drafted too high, more than normal. Like usually you play with a guy, you're like, that's a 3rd round pick. Like you just can feel it in a guy. Like if a player, like when you see it in OTAs, like you see how they move, you see how they shake, you see how they retain an offense. Like sometimes your 5th round pick, maybe, not as gifted, but super smart and super.
That's why
or you have a 5th round pick who's a freak of nature. What were you saying?
Yeah, the All-Star games are the All-Star games, like I said, you go back to the playbook, it gives you ability, okay, can the guy learn a playbook in 2-3 days and then perform in the game? It's not a huge time frame, but it's enough to say, okay, can he pick something up and then apply it to the practice field and then apply it to the game, and all those types of things. That's why, those opportunities and events, like we talked about the combine, where you got to be on and you got to be firing on all cylinders, just because all those events are all interviews, from players' perspective. But same with the scouts, they understand how important it is, so it's just covering, across all your, just the due diligence, turn over every leaf that you can, because you're going to invest, especially draft pick, if you're going to invest that amount of money into these kids, you want to make sure that you're doing all the due diligence process and you're just, taking it all in. You got to,
I think if I ever want to be a scout, I just want to find all the 7th and round picks and undrafted guys, just scout the shit out of them. Like I'll fly across the country and just find those guys and just hit home runs with them. Like that, I mean, it all intrigues me. Don't get me wrong, but like, there's so many guys that are so good that like and you're a great player. I don't take anything away from you, but all your like attributes and your ability and your ceiling, you have maximized them. You always talk about that. And that's what led you to be a 5th round pick. Like at the end of the day, that's
trying to, that's what you try to do.
Walked on. Yeah, you walked on. Like you didn't look like me, 5'5", 255. Like you did. That's why I wanted your opinion. That was kind of a long way to say it, but I don't think people realize the mountain you climb. We all climb different mountains.
No, I hear you. And I think another thing too is sometimes, numbers and analytics might be able to get in the way. It's like, is this guy a great football? Like,
He's a
from
good
a scout's
dude.
perspective. Can this guy play football? Is he a good dude? Does he love football? And is he the best player on his team? Like, does he pop when you put on tape? You might be watching somebody else, but this kid just keeps popping up. That's some that scouts find guys too. They might be looking at somebody else with this other guy that they might not have heard of or known because he's not as big as name, whatever. He starts showing up on tape. I've heard stories about that before. So, that's why when you're a college kid and if this is your dream, you just focus on getting better every single day and just be the best player on the team. I tell high school kids that. It's like, oh, how are college coaches going to find me? Be the best player on your team and they'll find you. Be the best practicer, be the hardest worker, and then carry that to the college level and then carry that to the NFL level.
Love that. Mike Burton, wisdom. Right from the Rockies of Denver. Mile high, baby. Mile high wisdom.
That's it.
Maybe it's Mile High Mike. Maybe that's the name for it.
It's not bad. That's pretty good. I'll tell you. That's pretty good.
It's not bad. Not bad for a Temple and Archbishop Wood kid. Mike Burton, we'll see you next week or the week after, whenever you can join us next, brother.
That was great. I appreciate you having me on. See ya.
Enjoy the draft.